47 years have passed since Knots Landing first aired on December 27, 1979, and the show still carries a weight in memory that sets it apart from most of what surrounded it. Not grand, not operatic, but grounded in the texture of people trying to hold their ordinary lives together across 14 seasons on a single cul-de-sac in suburban California. What happened to the cast behind those seasons is the rest of the story. Some of it is quietly triumphant. Some arrived in the form of losses that bore no reasonable relationship to fairness or timing. There are love stories here that lasted decades, and private battles the show's cameras never turned around to document. There are deaths, including one that came in the middle of the AIDS crisis and deserved a great deal more acknowledgement than the industry ever provided. Take your time with this one. The cul-de-sac held more lives than it ever looked like it could. Number 1, we have Joan Van Ark as Valene Ewing, the woman who loved past the point of self-preservation, whose refusal to stop hoping in the face of everything that kept dismantling it made her the emotional measure against which the rest of the show calibrated itself. Van Ark was 36 when Knots Landing began, a Yale Drama School alumna who had already received a Tony Award nomination for her Broadway work before primetime arrived. She appeared across 13 of the show's 14 seasons, earning 2 Soap Opera Digest Awards for Best Actress and building Valene from a position of accumulated emotional truth that no shortcuts could substitute for. She turns 82 in 2026. Post-Knots Landing work included theater, voice acting across animation and video games. Her daughter Vanessa Marshall became one of the most prolific voice actresses in American animation. And selective television appearances, including a 2013 guest return to the Dallas Revival as Valene Ewing. In 2025, she reunited with Michele Lee and Donna for the podcast We're Not Done Yet, 32 years after the original series concluded. She married John Marshall, a television news correspondent and her high school sweetheart from Boulder, Colorado, on February 1, 1966. In 2026, that marriage is 60 years old. Marshall made professional decisions across the decades that prioritized being present for their family rather than maximizing his own career. A commitment Van Ark has described with specific, concrete appreciation rather than general warmth. The detail most summaries of her career omit is this. At 15, interviewing actress Julie Harris for a school newspaper, Van Ark received a recommendation from Harris to apply to the Yale School of Drama. She went, on scholarship. Harris later joined her on Knots Landing as Lilimae Clemens, the mother of Valene Ewing. When Harris died in 2013, Van Ark created a scholarship in her name at Yale. Alec Baldwin, who played Harris's son on the show, made the first contribution. Valene Ewing was the woman who kept believing when the evidence against it kept accumulating, but Joan Van Ark became the person who repaid a mentor's investment across 50 years and built something lasting from a conversation that started when she was 15. Number 2, we have Michele Lee as Karen Fairgate, later Karen McKenzie, the neighborhood's conscience, the woman who understood that protecting the people around her and surviving the world that kept threatening them were essentially the same work. Lee was 37 when the series began and carried the character across all 344 episodes, the only cast member to appear in every single one, a tenure that became its own kind of statement. Her background was theatrical. She had appeared in the 1967 film of How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying and originated a leading role in the 1973 Broadway musical Seesaw. And that discipline showed in the groundedness she brought to Karen from the first episode to the last. She turns 83 in 2026 and remains a publicly active presence. She received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1998 and returned to Broadway in 2001 for The Tale of the Allergist's Wife, earning her second career Tony Award nomination. Married to actor James Ferrantino from 1966 to 1983, the marriage produced a son, David. She married producer Fred Rappaport in 1987, a partnership that has endured. Diagnosed with breast cancer, Lee made the decision, at a time when celebrity silence on illness was the expected standard, to speak about her experience with specificity and directness. The advocacy that followed was not a public relations strategy. It was the choice of a woman who moved through something difficult and concluded that the information was not hers, alone to keep. Karen McKenzie held the neighborhood's moral line, but Michele Lee became the woman who turned her own survival into something the audience could use. Number 3, we have Ted Shackleford as Gary Ewing, the man who arrived pre-damaged, whose alcoholism and accumulated failures were established before the first episode began, and who spent 14 seasons making the attempt at reconstruction the central emotional through-line of everything that followed. Shackleford was 33 when the series premiered, a relatively young lead carrying a character whose defining quality was damage managed rather than resolved. Gary's sobriety was always provisional, his relationship with Valene always burdened by history they could not fully leave behind, and Shackleford inhabited that complexity across 344 episodes without simplifying it. He turned 79 in 2026. After the series concluded in 1993, he stepped significantly back from major television, accepting occasional roles without pursuing the machinery of reinvention. No single project defined his post-show years, which appears to reflect priorities organized around something other than continued industry presence. His private life has been maintained with consistent discretion. He married, and the terms of that partnership have been kept with the same quiet privacy that has characterized his choices since the series ended. The absence of public documentation is proportionate to the man, rather than to any absence of a life worth living. What the Gary Ewing role required: emotional availability combined with the specific challenge of playing someone whose defining trait was self-destruction held in perpetual, imperfect check, was a performance sustained across 344 episodes that the industry's award system never adequately registered. That absence speaks more accurately to how dramatic network television was valued in the 1980s than to the quality of what was on screen. Gary Ewing was the man trying to become better than his worst choices, but Ted Shackleford gave that attempt a face honest enough that millions of people recognized something they already knew. Number 4, we have Donna Mills as Abby Cunningham, later Abby Ewing, the woman who wanted everything, possessed the capability to pursue it, and operated without the moral hesitation that constrained everyone around her for 11 consecutive seasons. Mills was in her late 30s when she joined Knots Landing in its second season in 1980, taking a character written as the neighborhood's antagonist and making her the figure the audience watched most closely. Abby was not built for sympathy. Mills did not rebuild her toward sympathy. She played the character with total commitment and complete absence of apology for more than a decade. She turns 85 in 2026. After departing in 1991, she continued in television films and series appearances without expanding her public profile beyond what Abby had already established, and she appears to have accepted that outcome without visible distress. Mills never married. In 1994, at approximately 53 years old, she adopted a daughter, Chloe, as a single parent, a decision made without public announcement and discussed afterward with the matter-of-fact quality of someone who identified what she wanted and arranged for it without ceremony. The professional confidence required to sustain a villain across 11 years, to decline the softening arcs, to hold the character in her designated moral position through every season's pressure toward audience approval, was both unusual and deliberately maintained. The industry does not routinely encourage women to sustain villainy as a long-term artistic commitment, and the pressure to modulate it was constant. Mills held the position without modulating. Abby Cunningham took whatever she could reach, but Donna Mills proved that a woman could inhabit moral complexity for 11 years without apology and remain the most compelling presence in the room. Number 5, we have Kevin Dobson as McKenzie, the steadying presence, the investigator whose moral clarity produced the useful contrast that the show's more volatile characters required, and whose mid-series arrival transformed the show's structure in ways that only became visible once he was fully embedded in it. Dobson joined the cast at the start of its 4th season as federal prosecutor McKenzie, who eventually eloped with Michele Lee's Karen Fairgate after investigating the death of her first husband. He was 39 at the time, arriving with the audience recognition earned from 5 seasons as Detective Bobby Crocker on Kojak, and he went on to win 5 Soap Opera Digest Awards for his Knots Landing work. His post-show career continued through guest appearances and daytime soap roles, The Bold and the Beautiful, Days of Our Lives, and he remained a working actor without the disruptions of reinvention or the rewards of a significant late breakthrough. Dobson married his wife Susan in 1968, and they raised three children, Mariah, Patrick, and Sean. His commitment to veterans' causes was substantial and sustained. He served twice as chairman of the VA's National Salute to Hospitalized Veterans and received the AMVETS Silver Helmet Award for Americanism, the highest recognition given by a veterans organization. What his career across 4 decades represented was the particular integrity of an actor who understood that a show is held together not only by its most dramatic figures, but by the ones who give the drama somewhere to land. Kevin Dobson died on September 6, 2020, at age 77, after struggling with an autoimmune deficiency. The announcement received the quiet, respectful coverage that his career had always drawn, rather than sought. McKenzie was the man the neighborhood relied on without fully acknowledging the reliance, but Kevin Dobson spent 40 years demonstrating that reliability is its own form of integrity. Number 6, we have Larry Riley as Frank Williams, the principled, quietly warm presence who arrived in the show's later seasons as a man inside the Federal Witness Protection Program, bringing a grounded decency that made his death, both on-screen and off, feel like an injustice with a specific address. Riley was born in Memphis, Tennessee, and joined Knots Landing in 1988, becoming the series' first regular African-American cast member. A stage actor who had co-founded the Memphis Playhouse on the Square as a young man, he won the Clarence Derwent and Obie Award in 1982 for his performance in A Soldier's Play, and later reprised the role in the 1984 film A Soldier's Story. The role garnered Riley a Soap Opera Digest Award for Outstanding Actor in a Primetime Supporting Role in 1991. He was survived by his wife Nina and their son, Larry Jr. The details of his personal life were held close, and what was happening inside it during those final years of work was not public knowledge until the end made concealment impossible. Riley was diagnosed as HIV positive in 1989, but kept it a closely guarded secret. When Knots Landing's 12th season began filming in 1992, Riley appeared gaunt and visibly ill, and the National Enquirer threatened to publish the diagnosis. To prevent this, Riley appeared on Entertainment Tonight and explained his altered appearance was due to kidney failure caused by excessive dieting. His widow Nina disclosed the true cause of his illness only after his death. Larry Riley died on June 6, 1992, in Burbank, California, at age 39, 14 days before his 40th birthday, from AIDS-related kidney failure. He had been working until his body would not permit it, and the industry that received that gift processed the loss in the same silence it had imposed on the dying. Frank Williams stood for something the show needed to say, but Larry Riley was the actor who spent his final months working through a terminal illness in front of a camera so that the audience would not need to know what was happening. Number 7. We have Julie Harris as Lilimae Clemens, the deeply religious, uncontainable mother who arrived to disrupt Valene's life and stayed to become one of the most unexpectedly substantial presences on a show not known as the destination for performers who hold 5 Tony Awards. Harris was 55 when she joined Knots Landing in 1981, already one of the most decorated stage performers in American history. 5 competitive Tony Awards for Best Actress in a Play, 3 Primetime Emmy Awards, an Academy Award nomination for the Member of the Wedding. East of Eden in 1955 made her James Dean's romantic co-star in his first leading film role. She brought to Lilimae the same standard of craft she had applied to Mary Todd Lincoln and Emily Dickinson, because that standard was not situational for her. She was 87 when she died. After Knots Landing, she continued in film and on stage, Gorillas in the Mist, The Dark Half, recurring tours of Driving Miss Daisy, and survived strokes in 2001 and 2010, continuing until her health would not allow it. She was married 3 times, to J. Julian, Manning Gurian, and William Irwin Carroll, and had 1 son, Peter, from her marriage to Gurian. Harris was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1980, underwent a radical mastectomy, and while receiving chemotherapy accepted the recurring role of Lilimae Clemens on Knots Landing. She went to set during treatment. She did not frame it as something remarkable. The role was interesting, and the character needed playing, and those facts outweighed the others. Julie Harris died on August 24, 2013, of congestive heart failure at her home in West Chatham, Massachusetts. Broadway dimmed its lights for 1 minute in her honor 4 days later. Lilimae Clemens arrived as comic disruption and grew into something that transcended the category. But Julie Harris was always, from her first Broadway appearance in 1945 to her last day working, the most rigorous person in whatever room she occupied. Number 8. We have William Devane as Greg Sumner, the politician whose moral ambiguity was the show's most honest observation about power, played by an actor whose particular quality of relaxed authority made corruption feel less like a character flaw and more like a professional orientation someone had simply chosen to refine. Devane was 45 when he joined in the show's fourth season in 1982, arriving as an addition that shifted the show's center of gravity without disrupting it. Greg Sumner treated principle and strategy as interchangeable tools, deployed according to whichever served the current objective, and Devane inhabited that quality without judgment, without commentary, and without asking the audience for reassurance. He turns 88 in 2026 and has continued working with a steadiness that defies simple accounting. His role as President James Heller in 24. Live Another Day. In 2014, gave him late career material of genuine dramatic weight. A decades-long association with gold investment advertising became, through sheer duration and repetition, its own footnote in American television history. A cultural adjacency he has navigated without any visible concern for what it communicated about him. Married to Eugenie Devane, they raised a family and maintained a private life that generated almost no coverage precisely because it produced none of the material that coverage requires. Two people who built something and declined to document the building of it. What his career across 4+ decades demonstrates is the durability of a character actor with leading man instincts, the capacity to occupy the center of a scene without requiring the surrounding machinery of stardom to hold him there, and still doing precisely that at 88. Greg Sumner ran everything from its edges, but William Devane proved that staying disciplined and unflashy is its own form of longevity in an industry that rarely rewards either. Number 9. We have Lisa Hartman as C.G. Dunn, and in a storytelling decision that required explanation and then stopped requiring it, Kathy Geary, a dual presence whose return under a different name after her first character's death acknowledged, without fully resolving, the show's apparent reluctance to lose her face. Hartman was 25 when she first appeared in the third season in 1982, a Houston-born actress and recording artist whose career moved with genuine momentum in both directions simultaneously. She left and returned, building Kathy into a distinct enough figure that the recycled casting eventually ceased to be the subject of the conversation. She turns 70 in 2026. Her departure from the series in the late 1980s was followed by a marriage rather than a career expansion. She married country artist Clint Black on October 20, 1991, and they have remained together. Their daughter, Lily Pearl, was born in 2001. Hartman stepped back from professional acting largely after the marriage, a withdrawal that reads as deliberate in every available account. As of 2026, the marriage is 34 years old, a duration that stands as its own statistical argument in an industry specifically structured to complicate the marriages made inside it. What tends to go unaddressed is that she walked away from an active screen career at 35, with professional momentum still behind it, and has not offered, in the 3 decades since, any indication that the exchange was an error. The endorsement of a quieter life is available in the consistent absence of any recorded regret. CG was the singer who died before the story was finished, but Lisa Hartman became the woman who chose, while still young enough to act on the choice, what she actually wanted. Number 10. We have Pat Petersen as Michael Fairgate, Karen and Sid's son, the teenager whose coming of age unfolded in a household where the adults were perpetually managing something catastrophic the children were not supposed to fully understand, which is a recognizable version of childhood regardless of the zip code. Petersen was 13 years old when Knots Landing began on December 27, 1979. He appeared in 216 episodes of Knots Landing across 12 years, growing from a child character into a central figure in the show's later seasons. He aged on screen as child actors on long-running productions do, visibly, without the privacy that most people are permitted during that process. He turns 59 in 2026. After concluding his run on Knots Landing in 1991, Petersen briefly studied jazz and piano at the Grove School of Music in Los Angeles. He recognized his professional limits in that direction, attended the University of Southern California, where he earned a degree in business administration, and subsequently founded Rhino Naturals, a company specializing in liquid nutritional supplements. He is married with 2 children. His life since the series ended has been maintained with privacy proportionate to a man who spent 12 years without any. The structural reality of his experience that tends to be minimized is that the entertainment industry consumed the years when most people are permitted to be uncertain, unformed, and unobserved. And what he built when the observation ended was a life defined almost entirely by its distance from performance. Michael Fairgate grew up watching his parents navigate catastrophe, but Pat Petersen grew up inside a camera's frame from age 13 and had the self-knowledge at 24 to step out of it permanently and build something the camera would never follow.